The kitchen of the human diplomatic ship was hot and filled with steam. Princess Nari wiped sweat from her forehead as she stirred a large pot of soup. Her hands were rough and dirty from 3 days of pretending to be a servant. The fake name she had chosen was Maina. It was simple and would not draw attention. Nari hated every moment of this disguise. Her real skin was made of beautiful crystal that changed colors with her emotions. Now she wore a special device that made her look like a regular alien worker. Her royal clothes were hidden away. Instead, she wore the brown robes of a kitchen servant. The mission was clear. She had to watch the human woman who would marry her brother, Prince Kai. This marriage was supposed to bring peace between the Valthian Empire and Earth, but Nari did not trust humans. They were weak creatures who lived short lives and had no special powers. Her people could read minds and had skin stronger than metal. Humans had nothing but their small brains and soft bodies. How could such a weak species be trusted with an alliance? How could one of their females be worthy of a Valthian prince? Nari had volunteered for this secret mission. She would observe this human bride and prove to the council that humans were not ready for partnership with their great empire. When she returned home with evidence of human weakness, the marriage would be cancelled and the alliance would end. The kitchen door opened and Vu Wu walked in. She was the human bride, though she did not look like what Nari had expected. The princess had thought human females were small and helpless. Jiwoo was tall and moved with confidence. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style and her clothes were practical, not fancy. "Good morning, Mina," Jiwoo said with a smile. "You look tired. Have you been working all night again?" Nari was surprised. In the 3 days since she had started this job, Jiwoo was the only person who had asked about her well-being. Even the human crew members treated kitchen servants like they were invisible. "I am fine, Miss Jiwoo," Nari replied, trying to keep her voice humble. "Just preparing breakfast for the crew." Jiwoo moved closer and looked at the soup. "That smells wonderful. What kind of spices are you using?" "Just basic ones," Nari said quickly. She had actually used Valthian herbs that she had brought secretly. They made food taste better, but she could not say that without revealing her true identity. "May I help you?" Jiwoo asked. "I know some cooking." "And you should not have to do all this work alone," Nari stared at her. No royal or noble person had ever offered to help a servant. This human was either very strange or very clever. "You do not need to help me, miss," Nari said. "You are an important guest." "Everyone on this ship has a job to do," Jiwoo replied. She rolled up her sleeves and picked up a knife. "I can cut vegetables while we talk." As Jiwoo began chopping, Nari watched her hands. The human moved the knife with perfect control. Her cuts were even and precise. This was not the clumsy work of someone who rarely cooked. Jiwoo had real skill. "Tell me about your homeworld, Mina," Jiwoo said as she worked. "I am always curious about different places and cultures." Nari felt nervous. She had prepared a fake story about being from a small planet near Valthian space. "It is not very interesting, miss. Just a mining world with not much to see." "I find that hard to believe," Jiwoo said. "Every world has something special. What about the people? What are they like?" "They work hard and do not complain," Nari answered. This was safe to say about any working planet. Jiwoo nodded thoughtfully. "Hard work is important, but so is taking care of each other. Do the people on your world help one another?" The question made Nari think about her own people. Valthians were proud and strong, but they were not known for helping those beneath them. The lower classes served the higher ones without question. It was the natural order. "They do what they must," Nari said finally. "That sounds lonely," Jiwoo replied quietly. Before Nari could respond, an alarm began ringing throughout the ship. The sound meant there was an emergency in the medical bay. Jiwoo immediately put down her knife and headed for the door. "Wait," Nari called after her. "Where are you going?" "Someone needs help," Jiwoo said without stopping. Nari followed her out of the kitchen and through the corridors. Other crew members were running in the same direction. When they reached the medical bay, Nari saw several injured workers lying on beds. There had been an accident in the engine room. The ship's doctor was working on the most seriously hurt person, but there were 3 others who also needed immediate care. Ji-woo went straight to one of them and began examining his injuries. "Get me bandages and medical gel," she called to a nurse. "Miss, you should not," the nurse started to say. "Now," Ji-woo said firmly. Her voice carried authority that made the nurse obey immediately. Nari watched in amazement as Ji-woo worked. The human's hands moved quickly and surely as she cleaned wounds and applied treatment. She seemed to know exactly what to do. Her techniques were advanced, more sophisticated than what Nari had seen even Valthian healers use. "Mina, can you help me?" Ji-woo called out. "Hold his arm steady while I set this bone." Nari moved closer, still shocked by what she was seeing. As she held the injured man's arm, she watched Ji-woo work. The human was completely focused, her movements precise and confident. There was no hesitation or doubt. "How do you know how to do this?" Nari asked quietly. "I studied medicine before becoming a diplomat," Guy replied as she worked. "It seemed important to understand how to heal people if I was going to work with different species." When the medical emergency was over, all the injured workers were stable and recovering. The ship's doctor thanked Ji-woo for her help. He seemed impressed by her skills. As they walked back to the kitchen, Nari's mind was spinning with questions. This human was not what she had expected at all. Ji-woo was skilled, confident, and knowledgeable. She had taken charge in a crisis and saved lives. "Thank you for helping me back there," Ji-woo said as they entered the kitchen. "I did not do much," Nari replied. "You did what was needed," Ji-woo said with a smile. "That matters more than you know." She picked up her knife again and continued chopping vegetables as if nothing unusual had happened. But Nari could not stop thinking about what she had witnessed. Maybe this mission would be more complicated than she had thought. The next morning, Nari woke up before dawn to begin her kitchen duties. She had barely slept, her mind still confused by what she had seen Ji-woo do in the medical bay. As she walked through the quiet corridors of the ship, she decided to learn more about this strange human. Her first stop was the exercise room. Through the small window in the door, she could see someone moving inside. It was Ji-woo, but she was not doing the simple exercises that most diplomats preferred. Instead, she was practicing combat moves that looked very advanced. Nari watched as Ji-woo moved through a series of fighting techniques. Her body flowed like water, each movement precise and deadly. These were not basic self-defense moves. This was the kind of training that took years to master. Ji-woo spun and kicked at invisible enemies, her speed almost too fast for Nari to follow. The most shocking part was that some of the moves looked familiar. They were similar to Valthian combat styles that were taught only to their elite warriors. How could a human know such techniques? Where had she learned them? Ji-woo finished her workout and began cooling down with meditation poses. Again, Nari was surprised. The human was sitting in the exact position used in traditional Valthian meditation. Her breathing pattern was perfect. Even her hand positions were correct. Nari quickly moved away from the door before Ji-woo could see her watching. She hurried to the kitchen, her mind full of new questions. This human bride was becoming more mysterious with each passing day. Later that morning, Nari was cleaning dishes when she heard voices in the corridor outside. She recognized Ji-woo speaking, but the other voice belonged to Commander Park, the ship's second officer. "Miss Ji-woo, we received the technical manuals you requested," Commander Park was saying. "But I must warn you, these documents about Valthian technology are very complex. Even our best engineers have trouble understanding them." "Thank you, Commander," Ji-woo replied. "I enjoy learning about different technologies. It helps me understand the cultures that create them." Nari dried her hands and found an excuse to leave the kitchen. She needed to see what Ji-woo was doing with those manuals. As she walked past the library area, she saw Ji-woo sitting at a table surrounded by thick books and data tablets. The princess pretended to dust nearby shelves while secretly watching. Ji-woo was not just reading the technical manuals. She was taking detailed notes and drawing diagrams. More importantly, she seemed to understand everything she was reading. Nari could see some of the pages from where she stood. They contained information about Valthian energy systems and ship design. These were not simple topics. Even educated Valthians needed years of study to understand such things. Yet Jiwoo was reading them like they were basic textbooks. "Excuse me, Mina," Wu called out. "Could you help me with something?" Nari walked over, trying to look calm. "Yes, Miss Guwu. I am reading about Valthian culture and customs," Jiwoo sighed, pointing to one of the books. "It mentioned something about gift-giving traditions. Do you know anything about this?" Nari looked at the page. It was written in the old Valthian language, which few outsiders could read. But Jiwoo had not only read it, she had translated it correctly. "I do not know much about such things," Nari lied. "I am just a simple worker." "Of course," Jiwoo said with a small smile. "I was just curious. The book says that Valthians give gifts of crystal flowers to show respect. I thought that was beautiful." Nari's heart skipped. Crystal flowers were indeed given as gifts, but only between members of the royal family. This information was not in any public books. How did Jiwoo know about it? That afternoon, the ship conducted an emergency drill. These exercises were meant to test how well the crew could respond to dangerous situations. Nari had experienced many such drills in her real life as a princess, but she had to pretend this was new to her. The alarm sounded and red lights began flashing. Over the communication system, the captain announced that they were simulating a fire in the engine room with possible hull damage. Nari watched as crew members ran through the corridors, some panicking and others trying to follow emergency procedures. In the confusion, several people were shouting different orders, and no one seemed to know what to do first. Then Jiwoo's voice cut through the noise. "Engineering team to Section 7. Medical team to the lower deck. Everyone else follow evacuation route 3. Her voice was calm but carried complete authority. People immediately began following her instructions. Even the ship's officers seemed to accept her leadership without question. "Commander Park," Jiwoo called out, "we need to isolate the damaged sections and reroute power to life support systems. Can your team handle that?" "Yes, miss," the commander replied and hurried away with his people. Jiwoo then turned to the medical team. "Prepare for possible injuries from smoke inhalation and burns. Set up treatment areas in the main corridor and the recreation room." As the drill continued, Nari watched Jiwoo coordinate the entire emergency response. She seemed to know exactly how every system on the ship worked. Her tactical thinking was better than most Valthian military commanders. When the drill ended, the captain announced that it was the most successful emergency exercise they had ever conducted. The crew had responded faster and more efficiently than ever before. "Outstanding work, Miss Jiwoo," the captain said over the communication system. "Your leadership made all the difference." Later, as Nari was preparing dinner, Jiwoo came to the kitchen again. She seemed relaxed, as if taking command of an emergency drill was perfectly normal for her. "That was exciting," Jiwoo said casually. "I hope the real wedding ceremony goes more smoothly than that drill." "You did very well, miss," Nari said carefully. "You seem to know exactly what to do." "I studied emergency procedures before this trip," Jiwoo replied. "It seemed wise to be prepared. You never know what might happen in space." As Jiwoo helped with the food preparation, Nari studied her face. There was something in the human's eyes that suggested she knew more than she was saying. Her casual mention of wedding preparations felt like a reminder of why she was really here. "Miss Jiwoo," Nari asked quietly, "are you nervous about meeting Prince Kai and the royal family?" Jiwoo paused in her work and looked thoughtful. "Not nervous exactly, but I am very curious about them. I wonder what they are really like behind all the ceremony and tradition." The way she said it made Nari feel like Jiwoo was looking right through her disguise, as if the human somehow knew that she was speaking to a member of that very royal family. That night, as Nari lay in her small servant's quarters, she could not sleep. Everything she had believed about humans was being challenged. Jiwoo was skilled, intelligent, and mysteriously knowledgeable about things she should not know, the princess was beginning to realize that she might not be the only one on this ship who was hiding her true nature. On the 5th day of her disguise, Nari was cleaning the dining hall when Jiwoo approached her with a strange request. "Maina, I was wondering if you could help me with something," Jiwoo said, sitting down at one of the tables. "I am trying to learn more about Valthian customs before I meet the royal family. Since you come from that region of space, perhaps you know some things that are not in books." Nari felt her stomach tighten. This was dangerous territory. "I am just a worker, miss. I do not know much about royal customs. But surely you have heard stories," Wu pressed gently. "For example, what can you tell me about how Valthian nobles greet each other? Is it true that they touch their foreheads together?" The question seemed innocent, but Nari was alarmed. The forehead greeting was used only between close family members of the royal house. It was never mentioned in public documents or cultural guides. How did Ji-woo know about it? "I have never seen such a thing," Nari lied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Interesting," Ji-woo said, studying Nari's face carefully. "I thought I read about it somewhere. Maybe I was mistaken." But her tone suggested she was not mistaken at all. Over the next few days, Ji-woo began asking more questions. Each one seemed casual and friendly, but they all focused on details that only someone with inside knowledge of the Valthian court would know. "Mina, do you know what kind of music the royal family enjoys?" Jiwoo asked while they were preparing lunch together. "I would not know such things," Nari replied. "What about their favorite foods? I want to make sure I do not offend anyone during the wedding feast." "Surely the wedding planners will handle such details," Nari said, avoiding the question. "Of course," Jiwoo agreed. "But I am especially curious about Princess Nari. I have heard she is very important in their government." "What do people say about her?" Nari nearly dropped the pot she was holding. "I have never heard anyone speak of the princess." "Really?" Jiwoo said with surprise. "That seems unusual. From what I understand, she is quite famous among her people. They say she is very intelligent and strong-willed. Some even think she would make a better ruler than her brother." The comment hit Nari like a physical blow. These were not things that outsiders would know or discuss. These were private opinions shared only within the highest levels of Valthian society. "Where did you hear such things?" Nari asked, trying to sound merely curious. "Oh, here and there," Jiwoo said vaguely. "You know how gossip travels even across space." That evening, there was a formal dinner to celebrate their halfway point to the Valthian homeworld. All the important people on the ship were invited, including Jiwoo as the guest of honor. Nari was assigned to serve food during the meal. She watched from the kitchen as the guests took their seats. Jiwoo was placed at the head table next to the ship's captain and the diplomatic officers. She looked elegant in a formal dress, but Nari noticed she seemed nervous for the first time since they had met. When the meal began, Nari carried trays of food to the tables. As she served the head table, she paid close attention to Jiwoo's behavior. The human was using perfect Valthian table manners. She held her utensils in the correct way, ate in the proper order, and even performed the traditional blessing gesture before each course. These were not basic customs that could be learned from books. They were refined details known only to those who had been trained from childhood in royal etiquette. But the most shocking moment came when Ambassador Chun proposed a toast to the upcoming wedding. As he spoke about the alliance between their peoples, Jiwoo stood and responded in flawless, formal Valthian. "I am honored to represent Earth in this union," she said in the ancient ceremonial language. "May our peoples find strength in their differences and wisdom in their shared hopes." Every person at the table stared in amazement. Even the Valthian cultural attaché looked impressed. Speaking ceremonial Valthian required years of study and practice. The grammar was complex and the pronunciation was extremely difficult for non-native speakers. After the dinner, Nari helped clean up while her mind raced with questions. How did Jiwoo know so much about Valthian culture? Where had she learned to speak their ceremonial language? Why did she seem to know private details about the royal family, Late that night, Nari decided to investigate. She knew it was risky, but she had to find out more about this mysterious human. Using her knowledge of the ship's layout, she made her way to Jiwoo's quarters. The corridor was empty and quiet. Nari approached Jiwoo's door and listened carefully. She could hear the soft sound of someone speaking, but the voice was too quiet to understand the words. Nari pressed her ear closer to the door. Jiwoo was having a conversation, but there was no other voice responding. She must be using a communication device to speak with someone far away. The subject continues to maintain her cover, Jiwoo was saying. Her knowledge of core protocols is extensive, suggesting high-level access to royal information. Nari's blood turned cold. Jiwoo was reporting about someone on the ship, but who was the subject she was discussing? She demonstrates excellent tactical awareness and shows genuine concern for others, Jiwoo continued. However, she becomes evasive when asked direct questions about the royal family. The terrible realization hit Nari like a lightning bolt. Jiwoo was talking about her. The human knew she was not really a servant named Mina. Somehow, Jiwoo had discovered her true identity as Princess Nari. I believe she is conducting her own evaluation, Jiwoo said to her unseen contact. The question now is whether she has reached any conclusions about our capabilities. Nari backed away from the door, her heart pounding. All this time, while she had been testing Jiwoo, the human had been testing her in return. Every question, every conversation, every moment they had spent together had been carefully planned. She hurried back to her quarters, trying to process what she had learned. It was not just a bride chosen for a political marriage. She was some kind of agent or spy, sent to evaluate the Valthian royal family, just as Nari had been sent to evaluate her. The next morning, Nari felt like she was walking into a trap when she went to the kitchen. Sure enough, Jiwoo was already there, preparing breakfast with the same friendly smile she always wore. "Good morning, Maina," Jiwoo said cheerfully. "You look tired. Did you sleep well?" "Yes, miss," Nari replied, trying to act normal. "Just the usual servant's concerns." "I understand completely," Jiwoo said, and there was something in her tone that suggested she really did understand. "Sometimes it is difficult to maintain a role when you have other things on your mind." The comment seemed innocent, but Nari heard the hidden message. Jiwoo was letting her know that the game between them had changed. They both knew the truth now. "Speaking of roles," Jiwoo continued casually, "I've been thinking about Princess Nari again. I imagine she must be a very interesting person to talk with. Someone who could have real conversations about important topics." Nari met her eyes and saw a challenge there. Jiwoo was offering her a choice. She could continue pretending to be a servant, or she could acknowledge what they both knew was true. "I would not know, miss," Nari said carefully. "I have never met any princesses." "Of course not," Jiwoo agreed with a smile. "But if you ever did meet her, I hope you would tell her that I look forward to our eventual conversation. I think we would have much to discuss." As Jiwoo left the kitchen, Nari realized that her mission had become much more complicated than she had ever imagined. 2 days passed in strange tension. Nari continued her work as a servant while Jiwoo maintained her role as the innocent bride. But now every conversation between them felt like a careful dance around the truth they both knew. Nari decided she needed to learn more about Jiwoo's real mission. That evening, she volunteered to work late cleaning the upper decks. This gave her access to areas where she might discover more about the human's activities. As she mopped the floors near the communication center, she noticed unusual activity. Several encrypted messages had been sent to Earth in the past week. The transmission logs showed they all came from Jiwoo's personal device. When she looked closer at the technical details, Nari was shocked again. The encryption methods being used were more advanced than anything in the Valthian military. Earth's technology was supposed to be primitive compared to theirs. How could humans have developed such sophisticated communication systems? The next morning brought a new crisis. The ship's main power system began failing. Warning lights flashed throughout the corridors as the engineering team rushed to find the problem. It's the primary energy converter, Chief Engineer Kim announced over the communication system. The quantum stabilizers are completely burned out. We'll need to shut down all non-essential systems and run on backup power. Captain Lee's voice followed immediately. How long until we can fix it? That's the problem, sir, Engineer Kim replied. These stabilizers use Valthian technology that we don't fully understand. Our repair manuals aren't detailed enough. We might be stuck here for weeks waiting for a rescue ship. From her position in the kitchen, Nari heard the conversations happening throughout the ship. The crew was becoming worried. If they were stranded in deep space, their food and water supplies would only last so long. Then Jiwoo's voice came over the communication system. Captain, may I offer to help? I have studied some engineering texts and might be able to assist your team. Miss Jiwoo, that's very kind, the captain replied. But these are extremely complex systems. Even our trained engineers are having trouble. I understand, but perhaps a fresh perspective might help. Jiwoo said politely. An hour later, Nari found an excuse to visit the engineering section. She wanted to see what Jiwoo was doing. When she arrived, she found the human woman deep inside the ship's power systems with tools in her hands. Jiwoo was not just helping, she was leading the repair effort. Her hands moved confidently among the complex machinery, making adjustments that the regular engineers could not understand. Try increasing the quantum field frequency by 0.7%, Jiwoo called out to Engineer Kim. Are you sure? He asked. That's not in any of our procedures? Trust me, Jiwoo said calmly. The harmonic resonance needs to be adjusted for the specific alloy used in these older models. Engineer Kim made the adjustment and immediately the power readings began to improve. Within another hour, the main power system was running better than it had since the beginning of the voyage. Incredible, Captain Lee said when he arrived to inspect the repairs. Miss Jiwoo, where did you learn to work with Valthian technology? Like this. I am a very dedicated student, Jiwoo replied with a modest smile. And I had excellent teachers. That evening, as Nari served dinner to the senior officers, she listened to their conversations about the repair. They were all amazed by Jiwoo's technical knowledge. Some were beginning to wonder if there was more to their passenger than they had been told. Later that night, Nari was cleaning the observation deck when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to find Jiwoo approaching, carrying 2 cups of tea. You work too hard, Mina, Jiwoo said, offering one of the cups. You should take breaks more often. Thank you, miss, Nari said, accepting the tea. The observation deck was empty and quiet, with large windows showing the stars outside. Beautiful view, Jiwoo commented, standing beside her. It makes you think about how small we all are in the universe. Yes, miss, Nari agreed, though she was thinking about how this moment felt like another test. I have been wondering about something, Mina, Jiwoo said casually. Do you ever miss your home? Sometimes, Nari replied carefully. What do you miss most? Nari thought about her real home, the crystal palaces and floating gardens of the Valthian capital. The sunsets, she said finally. They were very beautiful. I imagine they were, Jiwoo said softly. Different worlds have different kinds of beauty. On Earth we have oceans that stretch to the horizon. The water changes color as the day passes, from blue to gold to deep purple. That sounds lovely, Nari said. It is, Jiwoo agreed. But I think the most beautiful thing about any world is the people who call it home. Their customs, their wisdom, their ways of caring for each other. The comment seemed directed at Nari personally. Do you think humans and Valthians can truly understand each other? She asked before she could stop herself. Jiwoo was quiet for a moment, sipping her tea. I think understanding comes from seeing past what you expect to find, she said finally. Sometimes the most remarkable people are the ones who surprise you. What if someone has been hiding who they really are? Nari asked. Can they still be trusted? That depends on why they were hiding, Jiwoo replied. Were they trying to harm others, or were they trying to protect something important? What if they were trying to learn the truth about someone else? Jiwoo smiled. Then I would say they have good instincts. Truth is always worth seeking, even when it's complicated. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. Neri felt like they had just had an entire conversation about their real situation without actually admitting anything directly. "Maina," Jiwoo said eventually, "I want you to know that I respect you. Whatever your reasons for being here, I can see that you are a person of honor." "Thank you, miss," Nari said, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. "I respect you as well." "Good," Jiwoo said with satisfaction. "Respect is the foundation of all good relationships, don't you think?" As Jiwoo left the observation deck, Nari remained by the windows, thinking about everything that had happened. The human had just told her that she knew about the deception but was not angry about it. More than that, Jiwoo seemed to approve of Nari's mission to seek the truth. For the first time since beginning this disguise, Nari felt like she might have found something she had not expected to find. Not evidence of human weakness, but proof of human wisdom and strength. The question now was what she would do with this knowledge when they reached the Valthian homeworld. The next morning, Nari made a decision that would change everything. She could not continue this pretense any longer. The weight of deception had become too heavy, and she needed to know the truth about Jiwoo's real identity and mission. She found Jiwoo in the small garden area of the ship, tending to some earth plants that had been brought for the journey. The human looked peaceful as she watered the small flowers, humming softly to herself. "Miss Jiwoo," Nari said, approaching slowly, "may I speak with you privately?" "Of course, Maina," Jiwoo replied, setting down her watering container. "What is on your mind?" Nari looked around to make sure they were alone. The garden area was empty except for them. She took a deep breath and made her choice. "My name is not Maina," she said quietly. "I am Princess Nari of the Valthian Empire." Jiwoo did not look surprised. Instead, she smiled gently and gestured to a small bench nearby. "I wondered when you would tell me." "Please, Your Highness, let us sit and talk properly." The calm response confirmed what Nari had suspected. Jiwoo had known her true identity all along. As they sat down, Nari felt both relief and nervousness about what would come next. "How long have you known?" Nari asked. "Since the second day," Jiwoo replied honestly. "Your disguise was good, but you could not hide your natural authority and knowledge. The way you moved, the way you spoke, even the way you held yourself all suggested royal training. Then why did you not say anything?" "Because I was curious to see what you would learn about me," Jiwoo said with a small laugh. "I hope that spending time together would help us both understand each other better." Nari studied Jiwoo's face. "You are not really just a bride chosen for a political marriage, are you?" "No," Wu admitted. "Though the marriage arrangement is real, and I do intend to honor it if the alliance moves forward." "What is your real mission?" Jiwoo was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider how much to reveal. "I am Earth's lead xenobiologist and cultural specialist. My government sent me to evaluate whether Valthians and humans can truly work together as partners." "You were sent to spy on us," Nari said, though without anger. "I prefer to think of it as mutual evaluation," Jiwoo replied. "Just as you were sent to evaluate me. How do you know about my mission?" "Your brother Prince Kai is not the only one." "With sources of information?" Jiwoo said diplomatically. "Earth's intelligence network is more capable than most people realize." Nari felt another shock. "You knew about my mission before we even left Earth." "Yes," Jiwoo confirmed. "And I was glad to hear about it. It showed that the Valthian royal family takes this alliance seriously enough to investigate it personally." "You are not angry that I deceived you?" "How can I be angry when I was doing the same thing?" Jiwoo asked. "We were both trying to protect our peoples by learning the truth." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, both processing this new honesty between them. Finally, Nari asked the question that had been bothering her most. "Jiwoo, everything you have shown me, your knowledge of our technology, our customs, our language, how is it possible? Humans are supposed to be a young species with limited capabilities." Wu laughed, and it was not a bitter sound but one of genuine amusement. "Your Highness, that assumption is exactly the problem we need to solve." "What do you mean?" Humans have been exploring space for longer than most species realize, Jiwoo explained. We learned early that it was safer to let others underestimate us. When you appear weak, people do not see you as a threat. But your technology, your knowledge. Earth has been studying every species we encounter, Jiwoo said. We learn your languages, your customs, your strengths and weaknesses, not to harm you, but to understand how we can work together. You have been gathering intelligence on all the major powers. We have been learning, Jiwoo corrected gently. There is a difference. Knowledge used to harm others is wrong. Knowledge used to build bridges is necessary. Nari thought about this. Is that why you were able to repair our power systems? You have studied Valthian technology. Among others, Jiwoo confirmed, Earth's greatest strength is not any single capability. It is our ability to adapt and learn from everyone we meet. And what have you learned about us? That Valthians are proud, honorable, and powerful, Jiwoo said. But also that you sometimes let your pride prevent you from seeing the value in others. The words stung because they were true. What else? That your princess is intelligent, curious, and genuinely cares about her people's welfare, Jiwoo sighed, looking directly at Nari. She was willing to take on a difficult and potentially dangerous mission to protect her family and her empire. Do you think the alliance can work? Nari asked. That depends on what you decide to tell your people. When we arrive, Jiwoo replied. You came here expecting to find weakness. Instead, you found strength that you did not expect. The question is whether you will recommend that your people accept humans as true partners. And if I do not, then the alliance will fail, Jiwoo said simply. Earth will not force a partnership where we are not wanted. We will continue our development alone and hope that someday in the future, our peoples can meet again under better circumstances. You would walk away from all the benefits an alliance with the Valthian Empire could bring. Partnership must be chosen freely by both sides, Jiwoo said firmly. Anything else is just another form of conquest. Nari was impressed by this attitude. In her experience, most species would do anything to gain access to Valthian technology and resources. The fact that humans were willing to refuse such benefits if the partnership was not genuine showed a kind of integrity she had not expected. Jiwoo, may I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you want to marry my brother? Jiwoo smiled. I have never met Prince Kai, so I cannot say if we will find personal happiness together. But I am willing to try if it will help our peoples build a better future. That is a great sacrifice. Not a sacrifice, Jiwoo corrected. A choice. I believe that sometimes individuals must accept difficult responsibilities for the good of many others, even if it means giving up your own dreams. Who says I am giving up my dreams? Wu asked. My greatest dream is to see different species working together in peace. If marrying your brother helps achieve that dream, then I will have gained more than I lost. As they talked, Nari realized that she had found something she had never expected to find. Not just evidence of human capability, but proof of human wisdom and honor. Jiwoo was not the weak, simple creature that Valthian prejudice had led her to expect. What happens now? Nari asked. Now we finish our journey to your homeworld, Jiwoo said, and you decide what kind of future you want to help build. Together, if you choose, Jiwoo agreed. We could work together to make this alliance succeed. Or you could report that humans are too dangerous to trust, and we will part as friends who tried. Nari stood up from the bench, feeling like she was making one of the most important decisions of her life. Jiwoo, I think there is much more we need to discuss before we arrive. I agree completely, Your Highness, Jiwoo said, also standing. But first, may I suggest we start by using our real names? I would like that very much, Nari replied, and for the first time since beginning this mission, she felt truly hopeful about what they might accomplish together. The final week of their journey passed quickly as Nari and Jiwoo worked together to prepare for their arrival at the Valthian homeworld. Without the need for deception, they could speak freely about their hopes and concerns for the alliance. Tell me about your brother, Jiwoo said as they sat in Nari's quarters, reviewing diplomatic protocols. What kind of person is Prince Kai? He is intelligent and kind, Nari replied honestly. But he has lived his entire life knowing that he would one day rule our empire. Sometimes that makes him too serious. Does he want this marriage? He wants what is best for our people, Nari said. Like you, he is willing to accept personal sacrifice for the greater good. That sounds lonely, Jiwoo observed. Royal life often is, Nari admitted. That is why I was so surprised by your kindness when you thought I was just a servant. Most people treat those below their station as if they were invisible. Everyone deserves respect, Jiwoo said simply. Power should not change how we treat others. Over their conversations, Nari learned more about Earth's true capabilities. Humans had developed advanced medical techniques that could heal injuries thought impossible to treat. Their agricultural methods could grow food in environments where nothing should be able to live. Their educational systems produced citizens who could adapt to almost any challenge. Why do you hide these achievements? Nari asked. You could demand respect from other species instead of letting them think you are primitive. Because demanding respect rarely works, Jiwoo explained. It is better to earn respect through actions. When people discover our capabilities naturally, they are more likely to see us as partners rather than threats. But some species will always see you as inferior no matter what you achieve. Then those are not species we want as allies, Jiwoo said. True partnership requires mutual respect. If they cannot give that, then we are better off without them. This philosophy impressed Nari deeply. The Valthian approach had always been to demonstrate power first and build relationships second. But Jiwoo's method seemed to create stronger and more lasting bonds. As they prepared for arrival, Nari made her own revelations about Valthian society. She explained that their empire was not as unified as it appeared from the outside. Many Valthians were tired of conquest and expansion. They wanted to focus on development and culture instead of military growth. The alliance with Earth could give us an alternative to constant warfare, Nari said. Your people's adaptability could help us solve problems without always resorting to force. And your people's strength could help protect us while we continue to develop, Jiwoo replied. It would be a true partnership. On their last day before arrival, Captain Lee announced that they were approaching Valthian space. Soon they would be met by an escort of royal ships that would guide them to the capital world. Nari knew that once they arrived, everything would change. She would resume her role as princess, and Jiwoo would become the center of attention as the future bride of Prince Kai. Their friendship would have to be more formal and careful. Are you nervous? Jiwoo asked as they stood on the observation deck, watching the Valthian fleet approach. Yes, Nari admitted. I have to report to the council about what I learned during this mission. My recommendation will heavily influence whether the alliance moves forward. What will you tell them? The truth, Nari said. That humans are far more capable than we assumed. That Earth would be a valuable ally, not a subordinate to be controlled. Even if some council members do not want to hear that. Especially then, Nari said firmly. Our empire has grown by conquest for too long. It is time we learn to grow through cooperation. The escort ships were beautiful, their crystal hulls reflecting the light of nearby stars. Jiwoo watched them with obvious appreciation. They are magnificent, she said. Your people create such beautiful things. Wait until you see the capital, Nari replied. The crystal spires reach into the clouds and the floating gardens bloom with flowers from 100 different worlds. I look forward to it, Jiwoo said, and I look forward to meeting your brother. He will like you, Nari assured her. You have the kind of strength he respects. As the escort ships moved into formation around their vessel, Nari felt a mix of anticipation and determination. This mission had changed her understanding of humanity and of her own people's place in the galaxy. Jiwoo, she said, I want you to know that whatever happens with the political alliance, I am glad we became friends. As am I, Jiwoo replied. You showed me that Valthians can be wise as well as powerful. And you showed me that humans can be strong without being cruel. They shook hands in the human fashion, then touched foreheads in the Valthian way. It was a gesture that honored both their cultures and their friendship when they docked at the capital's main spaceport. Prince Kai was waiting with a full ceremonial guard. He was tall and imposing in his formal robes, but Nari could see the curiosity in his eyes as he watched Ji Woo descend from the ship. "Welcome to our world," Prince Kai said formally, offering the traditional greeting bow. "Thank you, Your Highness," Ji Woo replied, returning the bow with perfect technique. "I am honored to be here." As they walked through the crystal corridors of the spaceport, Nari noticed how Ji Woo took in everything around her with obvious appreciation. She did not gawk like a tourist, but her interest was genuine and respectful. "Sister," Prince Kai said quietly as they walked, "your report indicated this alliance might be more beneficial than we initially thought." "Much more," Nari confirmed. "I believe Ji Woo and her people could teach us new ways to solve old problems." That evening, at the formal welcome ceremony, Ji Woo impressed everyone with her knowledge of Valthian customs and her respectful demeanor. But more importantly, she also shared stories about Earth's achievements in ways that highlighted potential areas of cooperation. When the council members asked about human military capabilities, Ji Woo was honest about both strengths and limitations. When they asked about technology, she offered to share knowledge in exchange for Valthian insights. Every answer demonstrated the kind of partnership thinking that Nari had hoped to find. Later, as the ceremonies ended and guests began to leave, Prince Kai approached his sister privately. "You were right about her," he said. "She is remarkable." "Do you think you could be happy together?" Nari asked. "I think we could build something good together," Kai replied thoughtfully. "She seems to understand that marriage between us would be about more than personal feelings." "But could there be personal feelings too?" Kai smiled. "That remains to be seen. But I am optimistic." As Nari prepared for bed that night, she reflected on how much had changed since she had first put on her servant's disguise. She had begun this mission expecting to prove human weakness. Instead, she had discovered human strength, wisdom, and honor. More importantly, she had learned that her own people were capable of growth and change. The alliance with Earth would challenge Valthian assumptions and push them to become better than they had ever been before. Through her window, she could see the lights of the Crystal City spreading out below. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, as the formal alliance negotiations began. But tonight, she felt hopeful about the future her two peoples could build together. The mission had been a success, though not in the way anyone had expected. Sometimes the best discoveries were the ones you never thought to look for. In her final report to the council, Nari would recommend full partnership with Earth, not because humans were weak enough to be controlled, but because they were strong enough to be trusted. It was, she realized, exactly the kind of alliance worth building.